Welcome back to Cheddar, everyone. Kush Bottles is one of the hottest marijuana stocks right now. The packaging company reported earnings on January 16th and posted huge growth. Joining us now is Nick Kovacevich. He's the CEO of Kush Bottles. Nick, it's great to finally meet you. Thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right, so revenue up whopping 258% year over year to $8.85 million. What's that growth coming from?
Well, we're in a growth industry. Cannabis is one of the fastest growing industries in the country. Obviously, creating a ton of jobs, creating a ton of financial opportunities. We've been very focused on the sector since 2010, starting the company. Really, all of our business is centered around this industry being in all the high growth markets and delivering a very good value proposition to the customers that we deal with, which are the businesses that operate either the growers, the producers, the processors, or even the retailers and dispensaries.
Yeah, even more amazing, your cash balance has grown as well significantly from 900,000, not even a million, to 5.5 million from August to November. Where's that coming from?
Well, it just speaks to the investor appetite coming into the cannabis sector. It's so different today than it was even a year ago, or certainly 3 or 4 years ago. There's a lot of appetite. People recognize where this thing is headed, and they want to get in early. And so, a company like us that doesn't touch the plant, we're also publicly traded, and so we're much more investable than a lot of these private companies that maybe directly touch the plant, and there's a lot more risk associated with those types of businesses.
Right, so let's talk about that a little bit, because you're not directly touching the plant. Let's say there were widespread crackdown on marijuana throughout the country. How would you guys be able to pivot?
Well, number one, I think the general consensus is there's not going to be widespread crackdown.
Yeah, I mean, Attorney General Jeff Sessions has threatened somewhat.
Yeah, well, he removed the Cole memo, which is simply a recommendation for the local attorneys to not prosecute cannabis, and now he's putting the onus on them to do what they please to do, and most of the local attorneys, especially on the West Coast, have come out already saying that they're not going to change their stance whatsoever. There's just not enough resources really for this quote-unquote widespread crackdown. Now, could there be certain instances where cannabis businesses are targeted? Absolutely, especially I think for the bad operators. So there's a new focus on compliance, and that's been a big part of our platform since day one is compliant packaging, meeting and exceeding the regulations in the markets that you're operating. And so we see a lot of client interest now in making sure that they're reviewing their options, and they're in some packaging that they know not only meets but also exceeds what they need to be compliant in their local markets.
Yeah, let's stay on the Sessions topic for just a second here. You had cited some data that basically sees the government creating at least $132 billion in tax revenue that would actually create jobs to the tune of about 800,000 if that were to happen, and it could increase to 1.1 million new jobs by 2025. Do you think that the attorney generals are thinking about the economic opportunity here, or are they just thinking about the legal and their political stance perhaps on it?
Well, I think you're seeing, the GOP in general start to support cannabis more because of the economic impact. And I mean, talking about jobs, this cannabis is going to be the biggest job creator of the decade. We're talking about coal jobs and things like that in dying industries. What's the point of that? Let's focus on emerging industries like cannabis that are highly manual, that aren't going to be automated anytime soon. This is going to be where a lot of careers are built, and where a lot of lower level labor jobs are going to be sustained over a long period of time.
Nick, quickly, we only have about 30 seconds left. Take us through how you're able to create compliant packaging as state by state regulations are different.
Well, we have to work directly with those states. So we help and we craft these legislations and regulations that we know are going to create a great commerce environment. And we know that it needs to be compliant, right? It needs to be stuff that is child resistant, that actually protects from accidental ingestion and things that could be negative setbacks for the entire industry. So we're actually ahead of the curve, and then we're able to recommend our solutions across multiple states where we actually have distribution centers and footprint with salespeople, and we have an intimate knowledge of that market and the regulations and what it takes to be compliant in those markets.
All right, Nick, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks so much for joining us on Cheddar.
Thanks for having me.
Yes.
Nick Kovacevich, he's the CEO of Kush Bottles.